Thank you, sir. We are heading to an explorative session sharing experiences of Research Capacity Building Committee, a team promising attempt to build research capacity, and a report of IPS South Zonal Branch initiatives by Dr. M.V. Ashok and Dr. Rajshekhar Bipeta. The session will be moderated by Dr. P.V. Indu.
Good evening, one and all. Welcome, all of you, to this session on behalf of the Research Capacity Building Committee team.
Dr. P.V.
At the
Indu,
outset-
Professor, Department of Psychiatry, Government Medical College, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. Member, Research Capacity Building Committee, IPS South Zonal Branch. I welcome you, ma'am.
On behalf of the RCBC team, I welcome one and all to this session on experience sharing by the RCBC team, a promising attempt to build research capacity, a report of an IPS South Zone Branch initiative. At the outset, let me welcome Dr. T.P. Sudhakar sir, past President, IPS South Zone Branch, Dr. Kishan sir, immediate past President, IPS South Zone Branch, Dr. Ramakrishnan sir, President, IPS South Zone, and Dr. Ramana Neerat sir, President-elect, IPS South Zone, to come over to the dais. Along with them, I welcome Dr. Dennis Xavier, Professor of Pharmacology, St. John's Medical College, to come over to the dais. And also Dr. Ashok MV, Professor of Psychiatry, St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, to come over to the dais. It was quite a long journey that this team began almost 2 years back, when Dr. Sudhakar sir and Dr. Kishan sir were the driving force behind the initiative for a brief course in psychiatric research. When we started planning for this course almost 1 year back, all of us were apprehensive regarding the way ahead. Now, after concluding this expedition, which we had for 6 months, we stand before you with pride, satisfaction, and gratitude. Dr. Ashok MV had proved to be quite a leader in this expedition. My team members, Dr. Rajshekhar Bipeta, Dr. Nageshwar Rao, and Dr. Kannan, had been amazing in the team spirit they had shown while tackling each of the issues that we faced during this journey. But the one factor that took this course ahead was Dr. Dennis Xavier, without whom the course would never have materialized. And the results are there for all to see. 35 young to senior dynamic psychiatrists, fully equipped to take up the challenges of research that come their way. You can hear all about that journey from Dr. Ashok MV, Professor of Psychiatry, St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. Over to you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Sudhakar, Dr. Kishan, Dr. Dennis on the stage. We are missing Dr. Ramakrishnan and Dr. Ramana Neerat there. They must be busy in another hall. And all those of you who are online and the audience in the hall. Yeah, it was very kind of the organizing committee to actually give us this session here today to share the joy of having been part of a course that helped to build research skills in over 35 members of the South Zone. So we will be briefly going through the details that happened, and over this session we'll probably get to a little bit deliberate on how we can actually go forward as well. Research capacity in some ways I believe, and I'm sure, sometimes, I mean, it's surprising that we are thinking about it in the last few years. It actually flows from a core objective of our society. The very founding pages of the society says that one of the focus is to build, carry out research. Then we also see that there's been, let's say, these are the points for why we should be actually getting involved in this exercise. There's been a huge increase in postgraduate training centers in the last 5-7 years. All of us are familiar with that. And a lot of teachers are first time coming up suddenly to now guiding students with their dissertations appropriately. I mean, that would be one of the most pressing needs, to see that the faculty in medical colleges actually get used to actually getting used to research and helping the PGs also with their work. We all know that there is the NMC has now set criteria of promotions. They got qualifying exams. I'm sure some of us have actually gone ahead and taken the exams that is conducted online once a year, because now passing that exam has been made one of the criteria for actually subsequent promotions. Then, of course, that we all know that there's been a huge increase in the number of psychiatry journals in the country. And of course, if we want good articles coming in those journals, we would like a lot more of psychiatrists in India and South Zone, specifically with respect to this forum, to actually develop research skills and actually carry out good research so they can get published in these new journals. Eventually, I think research is so important because our work, it will actually research into our work. When I say into our work, in saying how we all actually do our work in an Indian setting. Research into our work will decide better outcomes for our patients. Else, we'll just be, as we've been doing for long, following research done elsewhere. And the more one gets involved in work, one would become more and more, it will be clear to everyone that research into our work needs to stand on its own to guide the work happening in our country. And of course, when we do research training, we kind of try to imbibe the trainees with an inquiring mind. And if you get sensitized to how to inquire systematically, I'm sure it will also have an impact on how we actually conduct clinical work as well. So, I mean, there's not a single reason for why it should do. There's so many reasons for why research capacity amongst ourselves should be enhanced. Who are the target of training programs for research? Postgraduates, definitely. I think there is a postgraduate training committee. There's a midterm CME held for postgraduates. So I think the research capacity exercise by the separate committee and also the postgraduate committee, I think there's a lot of overlapping roles, and this needs to be catalyzed and brought together. Clinicians, during many discussions with Dr. Kishan and Dr. Sudhakar and Dr. Ramakrishnan, we have had this thing about how do we get clinicians in the zone to actually start thinking about research. Because ultimately, our clinical work gets impacted by research, and like Dr. Dennis Xavier keeps saying, public health impact of research is the most crucial one. I mean, you can't do research for research's sake. It should eventually impact public health. Why should we train young faculty? Because I feel that is where, if we put our training efforts into young faculty, then it'll probably have the longest impact. They're going to be around as faculty for very long, and they probably, as they improvise their research skills, they're going to start having a cascading effect over a longer period of time. When we started this particular program, which I'll briefly describe, a lot of seniors also joined in. Must appreciate their enthusiasm, and we need to watch out for improved guidance to conduct of dissertations, because that's the role that many of them have suddenly been asked to play. And also, I feel the seniors get sensitized to research training, they would also be able to, in a better position, using their reach, to spearhead research programs, while youngster faculty might actually only start doing certain types of specific research. And of course, there are niche areas. There can be genetics, imaging, child psychiatry. There can be niche areas for which, once you got the basic clinical research methods in place, you can start targeting professionals who are specifically interested in these niche areas. As we speak, there are many models that exist for how research capacity can be built amongst professionals in India today. ICMR sponsors several research training programs. Oftentimes, it's kind of mixed with no overt follow-up. The program is done, and it's presume that the faculty will go back and do research. In fact, I also want to point here, Dr. Dennis Xavier has been actually supported and has been, got ICMR accredited research training methods periodically done with help of National Institute of Health and ICMR. So he's actually carried out several rounds of training for professionals from across disciplines around the country and beyond the country. So definitely the ICMR supported research programs are very crucial, but they may actually not have overt follow-up. Focus programs with specific groups across the career. Now there are varying targets. I mean, there are different targets for postgraduates, there are different types, like I said, for young faculty. So focus programs are available. Sometimes it is done like a one-day workshop here or a one-day workshop somewhere there, and nowadays maybe an occasional online session. So now there are lots of these kind of models going on, but they're not been actually integrated into a very, long, with a comprehensive kind of framework. Recently, the Psychiatric Research Implementation Intervention Initiatives for India, which is known as PRIA for short, it's an US NIH supported training program which is carried out through 4 hubs of the country. And this particular thing, actually, when we applied for that, St. John's is one of the hub. St. John's, where I work, is one of the hub. And we have actually got IPS South Zone as one of the partners in that. And that has been, I think, probably one of the first things in Indian setting that, actually the Psychiatric Society's zonal branch has actually become one of the partners in an application for research funding. The PRIA program actually has a different model. It kind of gets students selected for 6-month training or long-term training. For long-term training, they need to be in a PhD or an MD kind of course. They should be part of a course. Now, what they do is they actually expose the trainees to a huge set of research talks. So it's about 20-25 talks. They keep doing pre-test, post-test. So the trainee learns on their own. It's one-on-one. They learn watching the videos from variety of faculty. And after they have cleared all those post-test, your point, then they are assigned mentor to actually develop a kind of research. And there are several awards and so on, and the cascade goes on. So this is, and more such internationally funded programs under the Global Health Research Initiatives are coming up. So these are something, again, this IPS South Zone should be actively watching out for. Of course, Rajiv Gandhi University in Karnataka and many universities, I'm sure, have started supporting research training programs, and they conduct 2-day, 3-day workshop. So it's kind of a bolus training that they do. And of course, a lot of institutions do research training programs around the time the postgraduates have to make their synopsis and send it to the university and so on. I want to make this presentation today a little beyond just a report of what we did. Just to briefly say in this slide what we did, as many of you would know, there was a long valedictory on the October 17th at the end of the 6-month research training program, where a huge long report was presented. To put it briefly, we had 37 persons from around age 30 years to 55 plus years who registered after a call was sent out in January. They were divided into 5 heterogeneous groups. When I say heterogeneous, the groups were made across states, across gender, across age groups. And they participated in 22 sessions over a 6-month period, from April 18th to October 17th. So it's an exact 6-month period. And these sessions would meant to be 2 hours. Many of them lasted nearly 3 hours. 12 faculty members, including a course director, were appointed, and Dr. Dennis Xavier, who is on the stage, a professor of pharmacology from St. John's with great research training experience, he was appointed as the course director. Under his guidance, the Research Capacity Building Committee, we all put together this program. What we also decided was we'll call a number of psychiatry researchers to go along with the sessions that Dr. Dennis would have. So each session had something like Dr. Dennis would present, let's say, on cross-sectional research studies. Then somebody else from the psychiatry faculty would talk about how that is relevant and how it gets played out in psychiatry, for example. So this whole program over 22 sessions had touched upon in great detail 6 research designs. It had 6 journal clubs from which to learn the research designs about. There were almost 4 quiz at different time points as the training went on. And there were many other kinds of discussions with all goading the 5 groups to create their own research proposal. So the 5 groups of trainees, each of them, 6 or 7 of them in each group, very actively collaborated on WhatsApp, and they kept interacting, and they all together came out with 5 research proposals. And these were actually presented on 8th and 10th of October online, and we were able to give 2 prizes to the best of the 5 groups, and we gave 3 individual prizes on very specified criteria. time permitting towards the end, we wish this program to end with actually announcing these prizes once again, though it was announced in the valedictory. Now, how do we measure the impact of these kind of programs? Let's look at Kirkpatrick model of evaluation. Now, this model has been used to evaluate several training programs. Now, the first and first, of course, we'll see once the training program, so many sign up for the thing, how many were actually attending. I must say here, there were some challenges due to COVID and so on, but I would say that definitely over 25 attended 80% of the time, and over 30 of the 37 attended at least 2/3 of the sessions. The Kirkpatrick model looks at how the impact happens. First is the reaction, immediate reaction by the participants as the training is going on, or the other members who are actually joined as observers. What is the reaction? This reaction has been extremely good. I'm sure many of you who have been part of this would agree that everyone felt good about this whole training program, the trainees, the observers, the executive council members who happened to attend quite a few of these sessions. So the reaction was good. Level 2 is have they truly understood the training? When the training was going on, have they really grasped what it was, what the things that they were actually learning? They were definitely modest to good scores on quiz. One would say that, they could have done even better, but certainly it seemed like quite a bit of what was being trained and they were discussed was being understood by the participants. Behavioral change, in the cross-section in these 6 months, the behavioral change, they all got together, the network, they discussed, they spent a lot of time outside of these sessions and came out with 5 good proposals, 1 good proposal each, and they were all of fairly good quality. Now, I would say that level 1, 2, and 3 definitely shows that there has been some kind of an impact of this training, and the networks now are asking, and I think Dr. Bipeta will be presenting the feedbacks that he received from the participants at several points during the session, will bring this out, that many have been now asking for booster sessions. They want to somehow keep in touch and continue this, and the 5 groups, their WhatsApp groups is brimming with activity wanting to continue, and they want to look at these 5 proposals as the first proposal they want to seek funding for and actually carry it out. So there has been some reasonable, measurable, and kind of gratifying impact. Level 4, we need to see. This is the most crucial. How will the trainees display change in generating improved research quality? This we'll only know over the coming 2-3 years. As they get down to work and come out with their publications, we are going to hear more about it. Conclusions on this program. Very heartening start. A lot of efforts were needed because this committee has existed for 4 years. In the beginning, we were actually trying to find out how to get funds. Okay, gradually funds started coming in and we were wondering what is the method. And we said if clinicians and others from practice actually are going to join and be part of the training, or we may even disseminate funds, can there be a centralized ethics committee? How are we going to regulate this research? There were a lot of challenges, still many of these. So the first 2-3 years, a lot of discussions went on this. Gradually we decided, okay, let's start with the training programs, and gradually many of these other things will be coming together. I will be coming back again to talk a little about the way forward from where we have started off now. But for this particular talk, before I'm ending, special thanks to Dr. Dennis Xavier. He has been huge, big energy. He's really pushed all the trainees, and he's been such a popular figure amongst them. They continue to want to maintain, connect with him, and he's very happy to be in touch with them. Very special thanks to Dr. Dennis for making this program happen. Yeah, and I must say, please come. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ramakrishnan. Yeah, where Dr. Ramakrishnan has come just at the time I wanted to show my appreciation for the executives. The executive council members, this idea was mooted by Dr. Sudhakar and Dr. Jagadish about 4 years ago, which is when they actually decided on the committee. Initially, we were just 2 of them, and they kept building up the committee by adding members from all the states. Dr. Sudhakar, Dr. Kishan, then Dr. Ramakrishnan, and Dr. Ramana Nirat is not here. The executive has been incredibly supportive over the last few years, and as the new program has kind of come together, they have been, it's just we had to call up and things would just fall in place. Thank you so much. And of course, we got an excellent sponsorship for this program from Mrs. Icons Limited, Neurosciences. They were, and Mr. Sriram specifically, I must say, was somebody who really was the anchor to make sure that all these Zoom sessions happened very smoothly. A big special thanks to him. Dr. Avinash Kamath for making those brochures regularly and disseminating to everybody. So these are special words of thanks to all of them. And of course, our committee together, Dr. Rajshekar, Dr. Indu, Dr. Nageshwar Rao, and Dr. Kannan. Thanks to all of them. I'll end this here. I'll probably get to come back and discuss with you again about the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok sir, for concisely putting together all those activities which happened over the past 6 months. Now I call upon Dr. Rajshekhar sir, Professor of Psychiatry, Osmania Medical College, Hyderabad. He'll be providing us with a summary of the feedbacks that we collected meticulously from all our participants. These feedbacks, as Ashok sir mentioned, helped us in evaluating them also. Over to Rajshekhar sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Indu. I request Mr. Dinesh to share the PPT. Okay, meanwhile, I'll go ahead. Respected Ramakrishnan sir and Ashok sir and my seniors and dear friends, I would first like to express my heartfelt thanks to T.P. Sudhakar Rao sir, who had initially conceptualized this program many years back, around I think 5 to 6 years back. And that time Ashok sir and myself, we both were there. Following this, it evolved further and has gained momentum under the presidency of Jagdish sir, Kishan sir, and now currently Ramakrishnan sir. And we hope that Eraj sir will be taking it further. I'm just going to present the feedback. I'm not going to talk I'm not going to mention any frequencies or percentages, but first I'll just talk about the general feedback. Next slide, please. It was mostly attended by, like Ashok sir has talked about 36 participants being there. So most of the people were actually senior assistant professors, and one very heartening thing was we had a lot of consultants as participants. And overall, the attendance over 6 months period was 75 to 100%. And following were the items which are rated as excellent. The topics, the duration, which was actually of 6 months. The participants also liked being grouped into 5 groups, and also the interaction what Ashok sir talked about within the WhatsApp group, and a lot of support which they received from the mentors. So this was the general feedback which we got. Next slide, please. So coming to the positive feedback, one very heartening thing was that most of the people congratulated, participants congratulated, saying it's a very nice initiative by ITS South Zone. And they said that with this particular training, now they hope for a multi-centric research, and many of them are actually requesting for NMC recognition. We need to see this because it will take a lot of time, and a lot of procedures and protocols need to be in place to do this. There was a lot of appreciation for faculty members, especially Dennis sir, for the way they taught, for the dedication, for the motivation. And most of the participants felt that the concepts were very simple, crisp, and very comprehensible. The quality of presentation, the curriculum, especially people liked about the Zen protocol. Zen protocol is basically wherein one group presents and all other groups give their feedback as to how they can improve. There was what Ashok sir was mentioning, like each session had Dennis sir speaking initially, and then being complemented by a psychiatrist as a faculty. So like the non-psychiatric and the psychiatric perspective, especially Dennis sir has such a vast experience. He has got a lot of publications in good quality journals such as Lancet. So it was very useful. Group learning. So there was a lot of cohesiveness. People interacted within the groups, the assignment, journal protocol presentation, the discussion and interaction which we had amongst the participants, how to give a positive feedback, how to give a negative feedback, all that participants really liked. Now coming to the feedback, I won't say that it is a negative feedback. I would say it is a critical feedback. At least the future RBC, the next RCBC will take over this comments seriously and will try to improve the program. One very big comment, one very consistent comment was that the RCBC committee was not sticking to time. We had mentioned that it is going to be 2 hours, but we prolonged sometimes to 3 hours. Rather than putting it as a negative feedback, I would say that actually speaks success of the program. We never thought that this RCBC will actually go on for 3 hours each session. I would take it as a good feedback from our participants. Rushing through Sunday weekdays, in between towards the end, we had to actually put it on the weekdays also. Thursdays or Fridays, few people who are consultants especially had some problem. This also future RCBC has to take out, has to take it further, and they have to look into this issue. And also, like one comment which was there consistently was that they were not getting the handouts. See, we should appreciate that internationally, many faculty members actually, it's a copyright issue, and we should appreciate that they don't want to share handouts. But again, RCBC, future RCBC has to look into it. And also few group members, see, like Sir said, like there was one COVID issue also going on for past 1.5 to 2 years. So within the group, a few members actually were not participating actively. So there was a bit of poor coordination. So that's fine. I think any group activity, you people will be leaders, other groups members go back. So it's okay. So one suggestions which we got is about the refresher classes every 2 to 3 months, starts to be having more focus and also reduce duration of the course. They said that, okay, 6 months is a bit long period. So can we get it, cut it short into 3 months? So with this brief presentation, I would like to thank everybody and I would like to hand over to Induman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajsekhar sir. Now I request Dr. Dennis Xavier, Professor of Pharmacology and Head of the Division of Clinical Research, St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, the maestro and the kingpin of the brief course in psychiatric research, to share his experience and opinions regarding the course. Over to you, sir.
Check. Dignitaries on the dais, delegates, and all participants online. Good afternoon. It's really my pleasure to share a few thoughts on research and clinical practice as such. So what am I going to cover in this very brief talk? We're going to explore how more research can be done while continuing busy clinical practice. If you go and ask 1,000 clinicians, how come you have not done as much research as you could have, one of the number one reason is no time. How can we do that? And also, I mean, it's good to sit and complain and make a big list of why things cannot be done. So today, this afternoon, very, very briefly, let's discuss some ideas on how to get started. Many of us start, but importantly, how to sustain high quality research. And towards the end of my talk, I have 12 ideas for IPS to consider. So this is from my point of view, and these slides you can keep for your records later on. Why should I do research in the first place? I mean, I finished my MD dissertation, it's over, and now I'm here. Maybe my center is not yet a PG center, so it's okay. And sometimes if you're in an academic center, you need 1 paper, 2 papers here and there, and then you get your promotions and you continue on. So the very first statement I like to make is that doing research is not an option, it's a requirement. The meaning of the word doctor is teacher, and an integral part of being a teacher is to be a researcher. It's actually lots of fun if we get into and do research, and it's also very, very gratifying once we get into doing research. Common reasons people give why I do very little research, or just the bare minimum, bare required research, or no research at all. Lack of expertise. Now, by the time we became a psychiatrist, there is so many. I mean, if you start from KG school onwards, there is decades of training to become a clinician. Similarly, we don't have training and the necessary expertise to do research, which is a little unfortunate in our country. But the good news is it is changing very, very fast. The government and the regulators are not only making rules and requirements, but also making facilities available. Next, funding for research. We say there is no funding for research, but again, there's a lot of good news there. No time, we say, and there's no payment for nobody pays us for doing research, right? So what is the point? And also not much recognition is what the common complaints are. But the good news is, as I just said, all of this is changing very, very rapidly. How to get started? We need to get irritated. We need to get uncomfortable. As long as our chair is comfortable, we'll continue sitting in the same chair and not really getting bothered, right? So we need to get irritated. We need to move out of our comfort zone and realize the importance of research in whichever setting we are at, in my setting, right? And also realize the importance of the data that we have. Many, many people say, oh, I have years and years of data accumulated. Some really interesting things are there, but I don't know how to do it. I don't have the time, etc., etc. Right? So rather than just talking, let's see what we can do. I would recommend, or I would put forth, that there are 3 levels to participate in research. Number 1, we can contribute to research that other people are doing. Second, we can collaborate with others. That means there is some scientific input that we're giving. Can anyone guess what the third and the final level would be? Dr. Indumati? No, making friends we do when we collaborate. The 3 levels, the ultimate level is to lead research. And that is where IPS needs to facilitate. So once again, somebody else is doing research, give our data. Many people hold on to the data. What are you going to do with your own data? Of course, confidentiality apart. Give your data, contribute. Second, collaborate. You're doing research, you have a meeting, I'll join the meeting, I'll offer ideas, I will support you beyond just giving you my data. Finally, you get a group of people and lead. How do we do this? First, we need to get trained. We need very, very specific knowledge and skills, and this needs practice over and over again. We need to overcome lots of difficulties before we get around to doing high quality research. Research training, there are lots of online courses, and I must really appreciate the very, very hard work that Dr. Ashok and team put in. The RCBC has done fantastic work this year. The amount of dedication, the number of hours they have put in. I get excited. Anybody calls me anytime in the middle of the night, anywhere, I'm happy to go and teach. But then to keep a big group like this going is not easy. So that is really fantastic. And there are also full-time courses, both in India and abroad. There are short-term courses the Public Health Foundation of India conducts. CMC Vellore has been conducting it for many years. We in St. John's have been doing it for 13 years now. The Indian Society for Clinical Research has many courses. And there are several other opportunities in India. It's a good start. It's a good start is what I would say. This is a flyer or a poster of our 10th anniversary course that we had. Since the writing is very small, let me expand it here. This is 2018 was 10 years of our conducting this course. It is in collaboration with McMaster University in Canada. We did more or less all of the topics that we did in this RCBC faculty development or the program that we just had. So it was both health research methods as well as evidence-based medicine that we did. We also recently conducted a full week's course on only randomized controlled trials. We just concluded it in 24th of September 2021. The different RCT designs, cluster randomized, factorial, non-inferiority, adaptive, expertise-based, a whole lot of, and the different interventions, fairly detailed statistics sections, as well as operational aspects were conducted. Now, like in anything, why do we insist that all medical students undergo internship? And why is clinical training actually called a residency program? It's because we need to do things hands-on and we need to practice this, right? So research mentorship is really critical that way. It's real critical but rare to find mentors. So what's mentorship? It's a long-term support in all aspects of research. It's different from a guide. Guide is just project-based and then we conclude it and move on. Mentorship becomes important, especially when things don't go well. So mentors are really important. It's slowly improving in academia, but what about in private practice? Where can people in private practice, or as we call them, clinicians in private practice, where will they get mentorship from? But that is also possible. Let me just share this one idea which I initiated in 2017 as part of the Indian Society for Clinical Research. This is called a remote clinical research mentorship program, and I would urge the IPS to consider this seriously. Senior researchers to mentor people, and these days with Zoom and Skype and WebEx, it's really possible, but we need to have a good framework to do this. So these are the different areas for mentorship, and this is the eligibility criteria. These people, for this program as such, of course, IPS can change it in whatever way. They should have completed a post-graduation in medical specialties, nursing or pharmacy, and currently working in an academic institution or hospital. This can be changed to private practice, to include private practice as well. So this was the program that we announced in January. The first batch has started. The interviews for the second batch is this Monday on 25th. The second batch is also going to start, and these are the different mentors, and I'll be delighted to include psychiatrists as well in this program, and I'm more than happy to help through setting up a program like this for IPS too. So let me come to the third and the last part of my talk, which is how to take the first easy step in doing research, and that is to collaborate with other research sponsors. Other people are doing research. Don't tell research is bad, I don't know what you'll do with my data, and Share your data, share our ideas, right? Academia is doing this, governments are doing studies, so look out for, and particularly when people invite you, be proactive in our approach. Industry as well. Climbing up to the next steps, asking our own research questions, what can work well, and that was the goal of the recent 6-month program that we had, collaborating with others. Finally, this is the holy grail, that is to lead your own research, and research to change clinical practice by conducting large multi-center research. This is not for the faint-hearted. This is not easy. I've been in this for 22 years now. It takes a huge amount of effort and expertise. So let me give you what it takes to do this. 16 essential skills that I put together. Technical skills and logistic skills. Technical, yes, of course, asking the right research question. Very, very good skills in literature review, research designs, basic biostatistics. You don't have to become a biostatistician, but you must have idea of biostatistics so that you can discuss with your statistician. Writing skills, both grants and in publications. Presentation skills. We need to come up here, present our data, etc. On the logistics side, regulatory, good clinical practice, we need to know how to do research. Ethics, documentation, space for conducting research is needed. Lab, or either you have a lab yourself or for smaller centers to link with other labs. Data management, electronic medical records, good networking systems in your own places to manage data. People management and networking. We sometimes take this for granted, right? Let me find my favorite red pen and circle this, right? I would say people management becomes really, really important, right? Money management as well. We need to know how to get the money, use it well, account it, and get more money. Legal issues, lots of legal issues are there. We need to be aware of it. We also need to have legal, support, and finally know and get the right kind of insurance to manage all our big and major research. So 12 ideas, this is my conclusion, 12 ideas for IPS to encourage research, whether regionally or nationally. Facilitate training, number one reason, right? Number one idea, provide and enable funding. Not only, you don't have to just keep doling out money, but then build capacity so that people can generate their own funds. There's plenty of funding available in India now. I'm part of several committees in the ICMR, DBT, BIRAC, etc. Crores and crores of rupees people are giving. On one particular day from 9 till 5:30, 9 to 6:30, whole day we were reviewing, I don't know how many grants, but at the end of it, I just calculated about 75 crores we approved. That's a lot of money in one day for people, approved in the sense it went to the next level for review. So our committee of 6 people, we approved that. So yes, there is funding available, and IPS can help to connect people with the funding. In our institution, and Dr. Ashok knows this, every month we get a list of all the grants that are available in India and internationally. And when is the deadline is there? Why not, IPS send this out to people, right? Special presentation category at regional and national conferences for academic research, for people, and those in private practice have a special category of an award. Enable research mentorship. Many of you are really very good researchers. Become mentors and have an online platform. And I'm happy to help provide the SOPs and the systems to enable this. Set up central data management. Setting up data management is not easy, but it can be done centrally. Providing central statistical support. Getting good biostatisticians not easy, but we can find good statisticians. Start by employing them part-time and then employ them full-time. 75,000 to 1 lakh is what it would cost to get a good statistician with about 3 to 5 years of experience, but societies can afford something like that, and individuals can contribute to that. I'll go to the last half a dozen. IPS can enable clinical research insurance, facilitate legal review, have a part-time lawyer who knows clinical research, not any lawyer, right? Ethics review and approval can also be done, and I overheard Dr. Ashok talking that this plan is there. Support grant applications, support publications, and finally, as I said, institute special awards. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, research is important. It's not an option. It's a requirement for all of us to do, right? It has key challenges, but has great opportunities as well. We now have few important ideas that I shared in the last 7 or 8 minutes. Time to get started, and I'm happy to help, and good luck, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis, sir, for those words of wisdom. Now, I request some of our trainees to come forward and share their experiences and give suggestions to improve the course in future. I request Dr. Indumati, consultant psychiatrist, Mati's Mind Care Clinic, Coimbatore, to share her experiences.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. This was as mentioned by Ashok sir. I thought just I will have some fundamental knowledge about the research because I am in clinical practice for more than 10-15 years. So I will ask my touch with the research and all those things. Even to read the paper itself, I find it little difficult. What are all the data? So as everyone said, abstract only I will study, and this points I will take and leave it. Whether it is a good study or how to corroborate data, so all those things was very difficult for me. But after this session, I could grasp those things. It is fundamental I could grasp, and the basic knowledge of biostatistics, that is little bit more useful to me. And as said, it was very intense, and I could see the dedication of all the teachers and energy level of Dennis sir. All those things are very impressive to us. And because of that, even in spite of my husband telling, as though I married a student, that kind of feel I have nowadays like that, because he used to say. But I used to attend all the programs. I attended all the sessions, in fact, and traveling also I could attend one session. So like that I could commit myself. And the group mentorship and members, group members, our team effort, all those things I could appreciate. Only thing is, I am kind of person, I used to have some reference in all those things to refresh the memory and notes and all those things. So we could miss that. So that is the one thing. In spite of the 3 hours, 6 months it took. So the time part, probably it is required for this kind of program. But we have to commit ourselves. That is what I could say. So thank you very much for the wonderful program, sir. Thank you.
I request Dr. Shiva Ilanko, consultant psychiatrist, Chennai, to come forward and share his views regarding the course.
Shiva sir has left for EC meeting now. Sorry.
Okay. So we'll go ahead with the rest of the program. I request Ashok sir to speak about the way ahead.
Yeah. I'll continue on from where I had left. Few 2-3 slides on the ways forward for the society to think about this whole plan. Next slide, please. Oh. Sorry. Yeah. Now, we would suggest to the incoming new committee would be 1 to 2 at least annual week-long face-to-face workshops, because like even Dr. Indumati said just now, probably doing it all in one shot over a week, probably people can find time and do it, but this continuous sessions across 6 months is probably getting too tiring. And after this kind of face-to-face training, then there can be online mentoring initiatives. Now, this is something to think about. Online booster sessions, like it's come through in the feedback also, they're requesting it. And this continued support online, which Dr. Dennis also articulated, I think is something that the society has to actively consider. And we need to assess impact in terms of actual outcomes. I think just like we have to evaluate any program as a research program, this research program itself has to be evaluated for the amount of money spent and the amount of time and energy spent. What are the kind of new proposals, new research papers coming from the trainees and so on. So we need to get ready to assess impact in terms of actual outcomes. And probably a tiered set of professionals. When I say that, the committee probably should have about 10 or 12 members, and a few of them are youngsters and a few are who are already now experienced in conducting this. Gradually, they had to keep moving forward. The seniors move on and move out of the committee. Those who have got the experience, they continued then to conduct the sessions forward, and then a new set of people join them. I think having some kind of a system like this in place is necessary to see that these initiatives continue forward in a seamless manner. there are two major kind of supports are needed. Funds. I think it's been amazing how a lot of professionals from across the zone, as they conduct academic programs, have been coming forward to add money into this program. And yesterday also in the EC we heard about one more opportunity wherein some amount of the money would actually move towards research capacity building. But I think we need money for remunerating faculty, because faculty spend a lot of time and effort on this. They'll need a lot of materials, probably like the participants have asked for. We have to create manuals and materials and distribute. We need to have probably videos made available for regular use so that they can check out and continue to do their work. And also there has to be systems put in place for monitoring outcomes of training. So maybe somebody has to go and check with what is happening, check what kind of work is going on, especially if funding comes into play and the society gives money, there has to be a monitoring process, see that the money is being used. So even for this monitoring process, money would be required. So I think funds would be something that's really required to be focused upon. And the regulating efforts, see that the research is actually being conducted properly, as it was planned. Okay, it needs a lot of time and effort. There has to be overseas committee, maybe the executive council members, the journal committee members, and the research capacity members all have to come and work together to see that the oversee the research that has been supported by the South Zone. And of course, there's been a lot of discussion about having an institute ethics committee for the South Zone. It's a must-discussed idea. It's awaiting inspired and innovative options. Recently, Dr. Dennis was mentioning, the ICMR has come with the possibility of a centralized IEC, and I think these are things to be actively considered going forward. I think this is my last slide, yeah. I think all states, the Tamil Nadu has taken lead, should start having their own capacity building committees. States and zones have to start planning, because if the states come into play, then the zone will find it a little easier to monitor through the state branch. It'll maybe the reach gets a little closer to the point where the research is happening, for example. And I think states and zone need to that way plan on training and monitoring in a measurable sort of way. And I think anything to do with research, we should be ready to actually measure the process itself. Networking with a purpose, I think it's very, very important that we actually come together, consultants from various zones and specialties, to enrich the process. So not from other zones, from outside of South Zone, researchers and consultants can come together, and across specialties, need not only be psychiatry. So I think building this network is something the South Zone RCBC can actually take it forward and see that that whole network process available for teaching, training, monitoring, and mentoring purposes. We need to probably gradually involve officials from various agencies like ICMR, NMC, universities, to also join and observe the research training program, because that will be one process by which we might actually work towards getting some kind of accreditation for this program. Because once that happens, there will be a huge buy-in from members wanting to get the certification, because it will actually be something that will be impactful in their career. Think about Dr. Dennis is already on course to developing an MSc research training course. So probably 5-6 years down the line, if we keep doing this and we involve various agencies, it's not impossible for IPS to actually set up these kind of training programs. Now, also I feel one last important point, we not only raising funds from conferences and through individual efforts of so many members, however passionate they may be, I think IPS South Zone has to start becoming party to writing applications for national, corporate and international agencies to submit applications as a society and say, we want to conduct so many research training programs. We want money from you to actually make this happen. And I think that would be something that will be very actively the society has to consider going forward. These are just broad thoughts. Dr. Dennis has given several of them. So we thought we'll share with all the members, and hope that many of these kind of initiatives will start becoming part and parcel of how the IPS South Zonal branch works. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I request the dignitaries on the dais to briefly address the audience about RCBC and its work. First of all, I request Dr. T.P. Sudhakar, sir, past President, IPS South Zonal Branch, to address the audience.
Good evening, everybody. At the outset, I thank the Research Capacity Building Committee to give this opportunity to be amongst you, to share a few ideas. I was a PG examiner right from 1997. And during that tenure, initially I found that most of the PGs, they do research as part of getting a MD, as only, they treat it as only as a cursory, like they have to do it, they do it. But they are not really interested. And most of the PGs are afraid of actually biostatistics. That's why they don't want to do research after completing their MD. But once MCA has got some teeth, things have started changing. And now MCA, now it has become NMC, of course, and they have made at least two things compulsory. One is a revised basic course workshop on the new competency-based medical education. They also made it compulsory that every faculty should undergo, assistant professor level itself, a basic course in biomedical research. These things have made research more of an obligation rather than out of interest. I still feel the youngsters should consider that research should be inculcated from within. Somebody need not come and tell you you have to do research. You have to develop that interest. That's number one. And why most of the practitioners, they don't want to do research is paucity of time. And the second thing is poor documentation. Only very, very few practitioners use some sort of a computerized networks for accumulating data. Most of them they don't use. They just write on the prescription sheet paper. So the poor documentation is one of the reasons why most of the practitioners are not able to do research. If you keep accumulating and documenting the data, naturally at the end of 1 year or 2 years, you will have enough material. You can just review it and you will get new ideas to do research. That's one thing I want to tell. And probably, I have been attending some of these programs in this course, and I think that is one area where probably you have to give an extra stress. That is probably ICH GCP guidelines. Probably ethics is very, very important in carrying out research, and you just can't ignore it. Anybody who is going to do research should know what exactly he is doing, and the basic principle is do no harm to the patient. So that's very, very important. I think that has to be stressed more. And I only mooted the idea of starting an independent ethics committee by South Zone. The very idea is, again, to encourage the practitioners to get an ethics committee clearance, because they can't go to any institute and get a clearance. So I think South Zone should help them by establishing an independent ethics committee. But the problem with ethics committee is that now we have got a very strict regulations. Regulatory agencies are very particular. And you are talking about the legal assistance. In fact, if you go to ICMR regulations, you should have a lawyer in the ethics committee. So probably you can have a public prosecutor included in the list as a lawyer, and probably that could help. And these are some of the ideas which I got. Probably you can take it up. And as far as funding is concerned, I already shared a few ideas. And anyway, my successors are going to take it up. And I'm very, very happy today that a small idea which we had, myself and Dr. Jagdish, the whole credit goes to actually Dr. Jagdish, because he has selected the right man for the right job, Dr. Ashok. I'm very, very thankful to you, Dr. Ashok. And I'm also very thankful the further successors, especially Dr. Kishan, who had actually made it a very, very regular one. And he had encouraged consistently this particular committee without ignoring it. And of course, Dr. Ramakrishnan, the whole credit goes to him. He has enlarged it and made the whole thing start. The show has started. Now I think my baby has now become a toddler, and we should make it into an adult. Anyway, that will depend on the future successors. I wish you all the best. And once again, thanks for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Kishan, sir, to share his views.
Good evening. First of all, thank you very much to Dr. Ashok for giving the opportunity to share from the South Zone dais. I want to share few ideas about the whole concept of RCBC of South Zone. Actually, the associations in India like IMA and IPS and other professional organizations are evolving. What I say, IPS is also evolving. State branches, zones, and national IPS. Now, you see, I'm moving in IMA as well as IPS. So generally, IMA will most of the time will go on schemes, social security scheme and family benefit scheme, for security of the doctors. That is the main really goes on in IMA activities. But professional organizations coming, CMEs conducting, disseminating knowledge, all these things. Coming to IPS, you see the membership is around 6,000 to 7,000. But I have seen in American Psychiatric Association, there is more than 8,000 to 9,000 psychiatrists are practicing in America, which are Indian origin. There is a clear-cut difference between Indian psychiatrists and American psychiatrists. They do research. The original research, even Indians who are settled in America are doing wonderful. You can see a Keshavan, you can see a Rajiv Tandon. A lot of researchers are there who settled in the United States. But in India, the scenario is different. We are doing the service. Most of them are now, unfortunately, the national government is giving lot of medical college and Ganga giving lot of postgraduate seats now. But the goal is to provide services and doctor-patient relationship ratio. That now we are crossing that. Most of the doctors, I'm able to see some doctor families are coming. First generation doctors, second generation, third generation. Now we are having databases. I'm having in my own institute, I'm having 72,000 patient psychiatric database in my clinic. So there are a lot of databases in individual hospitals and institutions also having databases. But research is really there's a time to do research. Now what we call is India is world guru. Nobody is going to listen us unless you have a database and research. Nobody is going to listen you. And that is the difference between the West and East. You see the Dennis, the asset to the South Zone, Dr. Ashok and Dennis, I thank both of them. I've seen their work and I attended almost most of the sessions of this RCBC brief course as a watchman. Of course, I used to get as a regular link to me to attend. I learned so many things. And I done watchman how this is working. Wonderful work by Ashok, and I'm congratulating Dr. Indu, Dr. Rashekar, Dr. Rao, Naisha Rao, and Dr. Kannan. Wonderful work they have done. I think last 3-4. History of that research angle of South Zone started from Shaji. Shaji, as a past president, 7-8 years back, started this mission. With the collaboration of one university in Kerala and Dr. Praveen Lal, and that wonderful work. I attended 2-3 sessions of that. So that was still lagging from 2-3 presidents now. That was picked up with T.P. Sudhakar and then with all past presidents. Here, not single person is not important. It's the South Zone president himself having a mission of research that is going on now. And that will be supported. Yesterday we had a EC meeting. Now there is no fund problem in the South Zone. Already RCBC account is having 10 lakhs liquid fund, and one more proposal coming from Telangana State Bank, 10 lakh Dr. Raghuram Reddy research, that not a declared, tomorrow is going to declare by AGB, 10 lakhs research fund for the best published paper in all our South Zone journals, and whoever doing research, and it's a competition. We want now not only practicing psychiatrists, we want researchers in psychiatry. That is the trend setting and changing and the need of the society. We need more researchers, and there should be, and identifying funding agencies, not only Indian funding agencies, international funding agencies. Dr. Ashok told very nice point, that concluding remark. Now, the purpose is we are now, shortly we are declaring the best published research paper in South Zone journals and best research published paper by a South Zone member in whatever the journal is in World Journal. But we want to encourage them. Why we are there? I think Dennis told that a lot of funding agencies also there. But we want to stimulate. I will tell one quote from when Shiva want to give authority to both his son, the competition between Vinayak and Murugan. Murugan is, I think, my perception, Murugan is a symbol of research. He gone immediately throughout world and he come with evidence, I gone everything. But fortunately, I don't know, fortunately, Vinayaka got the authority. Most of the Indians, doctors or Indians are become like Vinayak, simply sitting, they don't want to. That is the, I think everybody thinks that we are pandits, we are having a lot of wisdom and we are scholars. So unless India never become a world guru, to become world guru, you have to do research, you have to develop database, you have to give evidence. There are a lot of wisdom in India, but that should be thoroughly put into scientific process of science. Then that should be, I think, what South Zone is doing in that direction. And I hope that national IPS will take this as a model. Dr. Ashok, be ready to go to the national and be ready to replicate the same thing all RCBCs in 5 states of South Zone. Similar shadow teams in all states, and we are planning 10 lakhs fund in South Zone and Telangana also, and we are planning all institutions of South Zone should have a research fund. But for that plan, we are planning Institute of Mental Health Hyderabad research fund, teachers fund for research. So we are planning a lot of research. This research fund is not going to give. And one more proposal is best proposal, funding best proposal in South Zone. That is also proposal there in pending in EC. So this is to stimulate the other Vinayaks to do research. That is the purpose. I think good days are coming for researchers. The future days of IPS, we need to contribute, collaborate, and the lead. This is the thing given by Dennis. Wonderful. All databases should be, they should contribute, they should come together, the databases, and all institutions and families of doctors now should be ready to contribute the databases and research, and IPS should collaborate, and future research leaders should come, and this will, I think that will be the trend setting. And we are reading Kaplan and other books, Leishman, everything is from Western books we are reading. So a day should come, we should do our own books of textbooks, and IPS should be ready to prepare the multi-author textbooks in that. That is the next phase of future, and with our own database, with our own research, with our own findings. And we are now in stage to read European books and American books. That should go. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Ramakrishnan, sir, President of the IPS South Zonal Branch, to address the audience.
Ma'am,
Madam, he is not available.
he has left for another session, ma'am.
Yeah, you can come to the conclusion, Dr. Indu. Yeah.
We express our gratitude to IPS South Zonal Branch for having given us this opportunity to take up this challenge and to have provided us with all the support for bringing this to a meaningful and successful conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I welcome Dr. C. Panneerselvam to present the memento to Dr. P.V. Indu, Dr. M.V. Ashok Kumar, and Dr. Rajshekhar Pipeta. Thank you, sir.